So, when it comes to the subject of unique guitar effect pedals, there's a handful of pedals that come to mind. One of which is the Earthquaker Devices Rainbow Machine. Now, this is the version 2 Rainbow Machine, and this pedal can do so many things from chorus to vibrato to slapback delay and oscillating delay, and just wild sounds that a lot of pedals out there cannot replicate. So, in this video, I'm going to compare the version 1 and the version 2 Rainbow Machine. But before we get into the video, be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel and leave a like and comment on this video. And feel free to share this video with anyone who's interested in getting a Rainbow Machine from Earthquaker Devices. So the guitar I'm going to be using for this comparison video is my Fender 72 Telecaster Deluxe loaded with Veritas Pro Line humbuckers. And the amp I'm going to be using for this video is the Strymon Iridium on the chime setting or the Vox AC30 setting, and it's going to be loaded with impulse responses from David Hislop of Bethel Music. All right, so here's this little pedal board that I set up for this video. So here we have the version 1 Rainbow Machine, and here we have the version 2 Rainbow Machine. So first things first, let's go over the looks differences between the two. So on version 1, well, if you can't really tell in this video, version 1 is just ever so slightly smaller in terms of housing compared to the version 2. You can barely see, but version 1 is just ever so slightly shorter in terms of length compared to version 2. And also, version 2 is just a couple of centimeters taller, or risen a couple of centimeters taller compared to version 1. Now, I'm not sure if that is because there's more circuitry in version 2 compared to version 1, or whatever the reason is behind having this pedal be taller and just overall bigger, but I can't answer that question. So I would, hit up Earthquaker Devices to see why it is that this pedal is bigger in comparison to this one. Another thing is the knob layout is just ever so slightly different. So you can see on version 1, the primary feature is to the top right and the secondary is to the top left. But on version 2, the primary is on the top left and then the secondary is on the top right. I'm not sure why exactly they did that. My guess is that they probably wanted to go from left to right, like how a lot of pedals are nowadays. So I'm assuming that, because primary is like the main effect in the pedal, so they probably wanted to be left to right and have, the first effect to the left and then the final effect or the secondary effect to the right. That's my guess. I'm not too sure, but yeah, that's my guess as to what that is. Also, the expression input jack is to the left side of the pedal now compared to version 1 where the expression pedal is up at the top. Now, I really like that because if you see up here on version 1, we have the input and the output jacks, we have the 9-volt adapter input, and also the expression input. So we have a whole lot of stuff going on up here. And on version 2, we just moved the expression pedal to the left side. And I like that because now we don't have so much, it's not so crowded up on the top in comparison to version 1. So I really like that they moved the expression jack to the outside because some people probably accidentally plugged their output into the expression input. So that's my guess as to why. But also, I think it's mainly because to clear up all the space that's going on at the top. Also, they moved the foot switches LEDs to the top on version 2 compared to version 1. So version 1, we have the LEDs off to the side of the foot switches, and then on version 2, the LEDs are above the foot switches. Now, I'm not sure why they did that. My guess is that for the most part, I think the sort of the industry standard for these types of pedals is having the LEDs above the foot switches, but I could be wrong, but that's my guess as to why they moved the LEDs. All right, so according to Earthquaker on their YouTube demo of version 2, the difference between version 2 and version 1 is that they completely reimagineered the pedal from dust covered ground up. So they said that it's more versatile, it's twice as loud as the original, it has an extended delay time, deeper chorus tones, improved signal to noise ratio, silent flexi switch foot switches on both the activate and magic functions, and has more magic. And last but not least, this is probably the biggest difference between the two pedals in terms of the looks and some of the features is the foot switches. So on version 1, we have these standard true bypass switches, and you can hear they have that loud pop or click on them. But on version 2, we have these softer foot switches that make like no noise. But also there's a cool feature with these foot switches. So on version two's foot switches, we can do regular switching with the foot switches, but there's actually a hidden momentary feature that a lot of these newer Earthquaker devices, Earthquaker pedals have. So if we just click it, we activate or deactivate the effect. But if you hold the foot switch for more than about half a second and then let go, it does momentary latching. So again, you can do regular foot switching, or you can hold and then let go. So I really like that, especially for the magic settings. So say maybe, I'm rocking this pedal and then I want to, just briefly kick on the magic switch. I can hold it for however long I wanted to and then let go when I want to. Or say I have a weird setting with the magic engaged and then I can just briefly engage the pedal and then let go when I don't want to use it. So I really like that. It is absolutely incredible technology, and I love that they're throwing these foot switches in all of their new effects. All right, so now that we've talked about the looks differences between the two, now let's go into the sound comparison. So I have these pedals set to as noon as I could get them. They're not exactly 100% at noon, but I've got them as close as I can. So this is just standard everything at noon setting. So let's give it a shot. So starting with the version 1, and here's my clean signal. So already we can hear a big difference between the two with everything at noon. So to my ear, version 1 is just a little bit more wet in comparison to version 2, meaning there's a lot more of the effects volume when everything's at noon in comparison to version 2, because I could kind of hear my clean tone a little bit more, or my dry signal a little bit more on version 2 in comparison to version 1. So I guess to compensate for that on version 2, you probably just have to turn up the primary and secondary just a little bit to match the wetness of the version 1. And then same thing for version 1, you probably just have to dial back on the primary and secondary to match the version 2 at noon. All right, so now I'm going to use the same settings, but now we're going to engage the magic features. So here's version 1 by itself. Now version 2. All right, so yeah, so we can already tell that the magic feature on version 2 has a way more dramatic effect compared to version 1. So not only does it sound different, but we have a lot more oscillation when we're at noon in comparison to version 1. We don't really have much oscillation actually when we're at noon on the version 1. So now I've set up this sort of chorus setting for both these pedals. So again, I've got these as close to the same settings as I can, but again, I'm going to compare the sounds and see if they really sound any different to each other or if they sound totally different. So here's version 1. All right, so again, version 1 sounds a lot more wet in comparison to version 2, at least to what my ears are hearing. Also, it could just be me, but so version 1 kind of sounded like it was going into a sort of flanger effect, and version 2 was somewhat going into like a phaser effect. Now phaser and flanger are pretty similar, but again, if you've listened to both of those effects, you know that they definitely can sound a lot different. So with these settings, version 1 to me, it's kind of gravitating towards a flanger setting, whereas version 2 is going more into phaser territory. But and again, version 1 was sounding a lot more wet in comparison to version 2. And also the low end, at least to what my ears are hearing, there's a lot more low end in the effect on version 1 in comparison to version 2, because like I have the tone knobs set to about 10 o'clock on both, and I was hearing a lot more bottom end on version 1 in comparison to version 2. So now let's do the same thing, but let's put a little bit of magic in there. So let's set the magic to 9, or as close to 9 as I can. And let's see how it sounds with the magic engaged. So here's version 1. All right, so again, you can already hear way more delay time on version 2 compared to version 1. In the magic knob being at 9 o'clock, it's you're already getting an oscillation effect on there. So again, that's what Earthquaker says is one of the biggest differences. And again, you can already hear it. So let me do that just one more time to showcase the magic feature. So yeah, you can already hear some of the oscillation kicking in on version 2 versus version 1. Also, one thing I forgot to point out, so if you noticed earlier when I was demoing the magic feature, when I engaged the magic feature as I was playing, you probably heard that sort of pop in the effect, and you hear a little bit of delay in the back, almost like some rattling going on. What Earthquaker has said about version 1, version 1 Rainbow Machine is when you hear that sort of pop sound and the little bit of rattling when you engage the magic switch, they said it's actually normal, and what that's doing to the effect is it's doing a jolt, as they call it, a jolt to the circuitry in the pedal, and that's what creates the magic effect. So they said that that's normal, and again, I don't think it's literally shocking the circuitry, but again, they said that it's normal that if you engage the magic foot switch while you're playing with the pedal activated, said it's normal to hear that popping or in rattling, because that's what the magic feature is in the pedal. But in version 2 you don't hear that, and that's what I like about version 2 is that we don't get that popping sound in the pedal when we engage the magic features. So again, it's so quiet, we don't hear that pop sound you get with these standard true bypass foot switches. And again, we don't hear that shock to the system like Earthquaker described it for version 1 when we engage the magic switch. So I really like that. That's really good on them that they fix that issue. I don't know if it would really be an issue, but the quieter the better, in my opinion. All right, so now we're going to do a tone knob sweep. So we're going to start from the tone knob all the way off or all the way at 0, and then we're going to gradually, in increments, bring up the tone knob up to maxed out. So starting with version 1, same chorus setting. And now into version 2. So wow, this so from what my ears are hearing, version 2 sounds a little bit more bright, on the more brighter side, but version 1's a lot more, not really darker, but there's more bottom end on version 1 in comparison to version 2. And again, you can kind of hear that we're kind of going into flanger phaser territory as we increase the tone knob. So let's actually go from noon. Actually, no, let's do about 10 o'clock and then bring it all the way up. So version 1. So yeah, we're kind of getting some flanging effect going on as we increase the tone knobs. So I guess if you really want to go for a flanger sound, you could just turn up that tone knob. But if you want more of a chorus sound, you should probably start backing off the tone knob to the desired sound that you want. All right, so now I've got both of these pedals set to a slapback delay sound. So here's version 1 with slapback delay. Now version 2. All right, so you can already hear, once again, version 1, we've got a lot more wetness on this one. You know, we got a little bit of a slightly boost in volume, but again, this effect is this version is way more wet with the effect than version 2. And again, to compensate that, you would just really just have to turn up your effect. But also another thing is we've kind of got, and I think I can sort of tweak the settings on version 1 to resolve this, but kind of getting more modulation on version 1 in comparison to version 2, at least what my ears are hearing. We're kind of still getting a little bit more of that chorus effect on version 1 compared to version 2. All right, now let's do the same setting, but now we're going to engage the magic switch. So version 1. Now to version 2. All right, so we're not really getting much of an effect at all when the magic is at 3 o'clock. So, and one thing to note is you really have to sort of tweak each knob around to get, a certain sound. So again, to compensate for the little effect we're getting with the magic at 9 o'clock on version 1 is you probably just have to tweak around, maybe put some primary in there. But yeah, we're not really getting much of an effect of a magic effect on version 1 compared to version 2. So again, that's what Earthquaker said was one of the biggest differences between these two pedals. So once again, let's go through version 1, see what that sounds like. Yeah, we're not really getting much of magic effect on version 1 at that setting. So yeah, guess it's really important to point out there. All right, so now let's get into sort of the wackier side of this pedal, especially it's what this pedal is known for. From the version 1 manual, I took from one of the settings. This is called the third up setting. So we got pitch knob at 3 o'clock, so we're going to get a third up the notes that we're playing, and it's going to be just the primary feature. So let's give it a shot. So here's version 1. Now to version 2. Back to version 1. All right, so once again, version 1, we're getting a much more intense effect in comparison to version 2. So, but that's really interesting to me that, get a lot more crazier sounds without the magic switch on version 1 in comparison to version 2. Now, once again, not saying that this sounds bad by any means, but you heard it yourself how dramatically different these two sounded. Now, let me actually throw in a little bit of some secondary. So let's actually put secondary at noon and let's see what that does to it. So back to version 1. Once again, like version 1 is just way more wet in comparison to version 2. So yeah, what a big difference that is. So now let's bring this back down. Now let's once again, well, let me try with the magic off, because on this setting, the magic is rolled all the way off. But let's listen to what it sounds like with the magic all the way down. So back to version 1. Now to version 2. Right. So even though there's not really much of an effect going on there, you can hear that in version two, at least from what my ears are hearing. There's just a tiny bit of oscillation that we get from just having the magic rolled all the way off. But now let's actually try it with the magic at 3, or I'm sorry, 9 o'clock, just to see what that'll do to this effect. So back to version 1. Now to version 2. All right, so we can hear that sort of pixie dust sound that this pedal is known for, just by having the magic at 9 o'clock with this setting on. So again, one of the key differences was the magic feature. So yeah, we can already hear how much of a difference it makes, even just having both of them at 9 o'clock. Right. So now I have both of these pedals set to a very particular setting. So first things first, the guitarist who inspired me to get into the Rainbow Machine pedal was Taylor York from Paramore. So he used the version 1 Rainbow Machine for most of Paramore's self-titled record, and also used it on After Laughter. And ever since the self-titled era, he's still been using this pedal to this day. So I think. So thanks to someone on Instagram for sending me this photo of his pedal board, I was able to see what his settings were on the Rainbow Machine. So thank you to that person. So I've got these pedals set to as close as I could get, because again, that from that angle, it's kind of hard to tell what the exact settings are. But yeah, this is the setting that I really liked from it, because I tried it myself on version 2, but now we're going to compare to see what the difference is between version 1 and version 2 with Taylor's setting. So here's version 1. Now to version 2. All right, so that magic knob just keeps going. So now let's try it with some overdrive. So here's the Earthquaker Devices Plumes on mode 1. Now to version 2. All right, so we can hear, especially with the magic, maxed out for this setting, way different sounding. So I guess if you're really wanting to go after the self-titled sound, you probably want to go for the version 1 in comparison to the version 2, because as you can tell, they sound way different from each other. Again, maybe I could, roll off the Magic to try to get a similar sound to how the Magic was on version 1 for this setting, but again, you can hear just a dramatic difference with this particular setting, especially with engaging the Magic. All right, so now we're just gonna get into some weird stuff. So I threw on just this weird setting. I don't even know what this sounds like. I just kind of got this idea to just mess around with this to see how it really sounds. So we got the pitch cranked up, just this weird setting. So let's get to it. So let's start with version 1. Now to version 2. Now let's max out or actually, let's put the Magic at 3. See what happens. And now version 2. Now let's just crank the Magic, see what happens. Now version 2. So that Magic, like that oscillation just kept going. You can just barely hear it with headphones on. So yeah, again, that the key difference thing it's that Magic function. But again, you can hear just how different these these pedals sound at this setting. Now let's make it even wackier. So let's just go ahead and crank both the primary and secondary. Let's bring the tone. Let's bring it to about noon, but let's bring the tracking all the way back so we can get some like crazy oscillation. So here's version 1. Now version 2. Now let's actually try the pitch all the way down. So version 1. Now to version 2. So they're kind of sounding a little bit similar when we have the pitch rolled all the way back. And this, when we have the pitch rolled all the way back, it's actually bringing a fourth below whatever notes we're playing. So, but yeah, at this exact setting, this is probably one of the closest sounds that we could get with this setting on 2 different pedals. Yeah, so at this setting with almost everything cranked, and at least with the pitch rolled all the way back, I mean, it sounds really close actually, but obviously you could hear the difference between the two with the magic and that oscillation carrying on. So yeah, it's pretty similar though. All right, so now let's go crazy with this. Let me throw some drive on. Let's just let's do some weird stuff. Let's see what happens if we just max out everything. And now let's just go nuts. Let's just engage both of them. So yeah, that's that was some madness. But once again, it's showing just how different they are. Because I mean, when I had that final setting, version 2 just kept going, and then version 1 was just kind of starting to slow down. So yeah, what a comparison, and just what unique pedals. Shout out to Earthquaker. You guys just have created such an insane pedal. So yeah, that's going to be it for this comparison. So let me know what you guys think about this pedal. So yeah, this was really fun. So that's going to be it for this video. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. And let me know in the comments, do you prefer version 1 or version 2? And do you really hear much of a difference at all, or do you hear a drastic difference? So let me know in the comments, and remember to subscribe to my YouTube channel and leave a like on this video and share it with people who are interested in the Rainbow Machine. And once again, thank you guys so much for tuning in. I really appreciate the support, and I'll see you guys in the next video.